The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has today insisted that the UK has a different view from the US and Israel and would not be involved in taking offensive action against Iran. But she said the government would back defensive action against what she called reckless Iranian threats. This morning, Iran said that an attack had been carried out on its Natanz uranium-enrichment facility. Iranian media and officials have reported the deaths of civilians following strikes on the south and the north, while strikes in and around Tehran continued. In Lebanon, the Israeli military says it launched a wave of attacks on Hezbollah targets in Beirut and southern Lebanon, while Israeli media reported damage to buildings in the north of the country after rockets were fired from Lebanon. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates all said that they were continuing to intercept drones and missiles. And drone attacks on Baghdad killed one person at the country's intelligence headquarters and caused a massive fire near Victory Base, a US military complex. But as we heard, the conflict expanded overnight with missiles launched at the joint UK-US military base on the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia. Well, with the latest developments, here's our correspondent, Andy Davis.
The Chagos Islands in the Indian Ocean, home to a joint UK-US base and target reportedly of 2 Iranian missiles. The Wall Street Journal said one failed in flight, the other shot down by a US warship. Whether the missiles could have reached Diego Garcia is far from clear, but such a move is upending many an assumption about Iran's actual missile range capabilities and the role Britain may yet play in this seemingly spiralling conflict. The Ministry of Defence called the attacks reckless. They happened, it's understood, before yesterday's shift in position by Keir Starmer, now expanding the use of British bases for American strikes on Iranian sites targeting the vital shipping channel, the Strait of Hormuz. That in turn prompted Iran's foreign minister to post that the Prime Minister was putting British lives in danger by allowing UK bases to be used for aggression against Iran. Iran, he said, will exercise its right to self-defence.
Whether you like it or not, is the UK being dragged into this war?
Well, as the Prime Minister has made clear, we will provide defensive support against these reckless Iranian threats. But we have not been and we continue not to be involved in offensive action. And we want to see the swiftest possible resolution. As he's made clear, we will not be drawn into a wider conflict because we think we need to see a swift as possible resolution in the UK national interest, but also to support regional stability, security and the economy as well.
In London, hundreds marched this morning as part of a Stop the War Coalition National Day of Action. Yesterday, the Greens and Lib Dems called for Parliament to be given a vote on Britain's involvement, while in Washington, a still querulous Donald Trump bemoaned,
I was a little surprised at the UK, to be honest with you. They should have acted a lot faster.
While he boasts of obliteration, his US Central Command posts footage of strikes, preferring instead to say Iran's capabilities are declining. In Tehran today, they mourned the death of Ali Mohammed Naini, another regime figure, a spokesman for Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, which again released footage purporting to show missile launches from within Iran. Donald Trump has said he's considering winding down the war with Iran, but in Israel, in Tel Aviv, as they surveyed the site of an Iranian missile strike, it was anything but a message of stepping back. Israel's defense minister here declaring that US and Israeli strikes against Iran will only intensify in the days to come. As Israel's targeting of Hezbollah in Lebanon continued overnight, the Israeli Defense Force issued footage of what it claimed were strikes on a missile storage site in Iran. While Iran claimed US-Israeli strikes also targeted again its Natanz nuclear facility, no radioactive leaks, they said, had been reported. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency called for restraint.
Whoa!
But this was Israel's southern city of Dimona this evening, located near Israel's nuclear research centre, a strike filmed from different angles. The calls for de-escalation eclipsed yet again by the sound of missiles.
Well, a little earlier, I spoke to Lieutenant Colonel Richard Williams, a former SAS commander who served in Afghanistan and in the Middle East, as well as to Labour MP Calvin Bailey, a retired wing commander who served in the Royal Air Force for 24 years and now sits on Parliament's Defence Select Committee. I began by asking how concerned were they that Iran had the capabilities to target a UK-US base in the Indian Ocean.
I think it should worry us all, really. I mean, as I understand it, and I'm in response to other commentators here, this is something that they said they couldn't do. So the fact that they've got this reach by missiles that can go as far as people are saying as Paris should worry us all.
And Calvin Bailey, I mean, we were told by the Americans and by the Israeli government that they had taken out Iran's ballistic missile capability. Clearly, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, these things are easy to reproduce, and the launch sites from them are very rudimentary, and therefore they're able to move them and move the launch sites around quite readily. To degrade this capability is a significant undertaking, and I think what we also see is that there will be aspects of these capabilities that come from outside Iran. So if they really have this kind of range, which I don't think they do, that kind of range would have come from a North Korean type munition. I don't think that's the case at the moment. I think this was just a speculative use of a shorter range missile, but it's a significant warning.
We thought this morning that the attempt to hit Diego Garcia by the Iranians with this missile was a response to Britain allowing the Americans to use our bases for some of their airstrikes. It turns out it was the other way around, that actually our permission to the Americans may be a response to this Iranian missile attempt on Diego Garcia. So how does that change things, Calvin?
Every one of these decisions is a calculated decision. So it is based on, so where there was a narrative of U-turns, they weren't U-turns, they were calculated decisions. So when we chose not to allow the US out, that was probably because we weren't able to identify the outcomes of this mission, period. And as a result, it wouldn't be apt for the UK to be involved. When we made the change, so when Iran started to attack its neighbours, then there's a different calculus, and that calculus meant that the UK had to extend its protections to those that it considered friends and allies. And I think it's really important for us to be quite clear about this in the public. We do the nation a great disservice if we talk of this as some kind of political game. This isn't. This is a conflict where people's lives are involved, and we want to see rational, sensible decisions made by our political leaders.
Including those in the United States as well. And to be fair, the language used by Donald Trump perhaps hasn't always helped. I wonder if you, Richard Williams, see our kind of gradual entry into this conflict in the same logical way as Calvin has just described.
I think we're reluctant participants in a war that needs to be fought. My view of the US position here, when people speculate on end states, they're expecting an end state to be something easy to describe, very hard to deliver, like a regime change in Iran. I think that's unrealistic, and I don't think that's what the US is doing. I think the US is doing a significant, what I call punishment raid on a grand scale to materially degrade Iran's ability to threaten its neighbors, the region and the world. And then having achieved that, it will also be a catalyst to deliver regional solutions to a long-standing security problem, which is the Straits of Hormuz and other things in the Middle East.
Does it really help for the American president to insult his friends and allies and call them a bunch of cowards?
Your language, my language, Calvin's language would probably be very different. But as we know with President Trump, he tends to use statements like this coercively to deliver an effect.
But words matter, don't they, especially in a conflict. Calvin Bailey, how difficult has Trump made it politically for a Labour government, where most of Labour MPs can't stand Donald Trump, a bit like the country, to make this very difficult case for war when he himself didn't make it?
I think Sir Keir Starmer has actually paid this incredibly well, and as a result, that has resonated with people across the political spectrum. If I'm honest, there have been these changes in circumstances, and he's responded to them rationally. And the other really important thing that we're seeing is the mobilisation of our allies.
But I wonder if the very fine line that you congratulate your boss Keir Starmer for treading will survive the heat of the battle, the heat of this war. But when you've got the Americans using our bases, who's to say they won't use it, for something that's very offensive, or indeed they might make a horrible mistake like bombing another school as it did at the very beginning of the war. I mean, this is politically, this could be very perilous territory for you, couldn't it, Calvin?
Well, I think war is perilous. It's not. We shouldn't be worrying about the political consequences. We should be worrying about the real-life human consequences. Where I'm comfortable and assured is that I know how the MOD works. I know how we make decisions such as these.
And given that, Richard Williams, do you think that we are getting sucked into a war that the public doesn't want, the government didn't want, and that we may not be able to fight because we haven't got the equipment?
In my view, we need to be involved here to support the regional powers in defending the Straits of Hormuz for free traffic, for instance. But it's not just that. There's a whole bunch of other things that come back to the UK in terms of its interest. With respect to being drawn into something that we don't have the resources to do everything we want to do, well, again, Calvin will forgive me, it's not just the Labour Party, it's previous governments too, have not necessarily invested enough money into defence capability for us to be able to do everything, perhaps, that we need to do.
Calvin Bailey, Richard Williams, thanks to both of you.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Cheers, Richard. Thanks, Matt.
Now, the former special counsel and FBI chief who investigated Russian interference in the 2016 US election has died at the age of 81. Robert Mueller was appointed to head the FBI by George W. Bush just before the September the 11th terror attacks, becoming its second longest serving director. In response to the news of his death, Donald Trump posted on social media declaring, "I'm glad he's dead," and claimed that Mr. Mueller could no longer hurt innocent people. That's it. And tomorrow we'll be speaking to a former US naval commander who knows all about what it takes to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. From Jerusalem, that's it from us here tonight, but so much more to come from Aisha in London. Aisha, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. Well, here, ministers have already begun planning for the possibility of a long, drawn-out conflict, including ways to cut down on the use of fuel. Kemi Nzerim is here with me. Kemi, what's the latest?
Aisha, talking to government sources, the mood pretty much is one of keep calm and carry on. A spokesperson for the Department of Energy Security said the government is continuing to monitor the situation closely, and people in the UK should continue to go about their days. But look, context is important. Yesterday, the International Energy Agency made a raft of recommendations. A number of them would be pretty politically difficult to introduce, things like reducing the speed limit on motorways, telling motorists in cities that they can't drive every day depending on what your license plate is. Also speculation about petrol rationing. Now, all of these things are what economists might call demand restraint. There's also been some supply side work, the IEA releasing the biggest ever emergency tranche of oil recently. The UK government, this is important, they say, yes, we import crude, but only 1% of that comes from the Middle East, and our refinery capacity exceeds demand. We export petrol, so that is some insulation against the supply of crude and petrol, but not against soaring prices, which are dictated by global demand.
So that's, of course, what the government is saying, but what's actually happening on the ground?
Right, so petrol, the bellwether, RSE says prices are already up 12p a litre, diesel's up 24p a litre. By Easter, petrol could be £1.50. The message here, don't panic buy. Aviation also important, jet fuel going up today. 500 flights cancelled because of the disruption in the Middle East. All of this, put it all together, inflation up, interest rates up. Until recently, they had been predicted to go down. Now it's going the other way.
OK, cost of living going up. Thank you very much, Kemi Nzerim.